Friends, welcome to another edition of Wild and True. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the rut and, you know, basically everything concerning the rut when hunting whitetail deer. But remember, it's a new year to boot, and let's hear from a few of the people that make this thing possible. Gary Stevie and Three Hard Outfitters, your North Idaho Adventure Headquarters. Cat Paw Bend, your source for seedlings and seeds for your own game paradise. Winchester Shot Shells, packing the punch for trophy longbeards. Mossy Oak Camo, hiding hunters in plain sight for 30 years. And Federal Ammunition, the best over-the-counter ammo for big game. Well, I'm totally sold on it. The rut is probably one of the most misunderstood things in the whitetail woods. And the reason why, you get so many different opinions and so many different viewpoints that you really don't know what to expect. And by that I mean, one of the biggest deer I ever killed in Alabama, there was 5 bucks I saw that morning, and they were after a doe that was basically a 3/4 of a year old deer. It wasn't a yearling, but it was a born late deer from the year before, and those 5 bucks, they ranged, all the way to, well, 3 of them were pretty good bucks, and then the other 2, they just kind of went around the edges. And I actually shot that deer the day after Thanksgiving in the state of Alabama, and they were full-fledged running the doe. And fast forward to, I actually killed a deer on my own little game paradise up in Idaho, and it was the day before the rifle season went out, and that deer was bedded in the horse pasture once again with a doe. And so that would have put it around December the 1st in Idaho. And so everybody, as a general rule, they say the rut peaks at this particular time and the rut peaks at this particular. And I believe, and this may just be my viewpoint and all that, but it's, I believe that a deer, depending upon the amount of feed it has, the amount of pressure it has, and everything. Whenever there's a deer that comes into season, the buck is pretty well going to be able to tend to his duties. Now, one thing. Let me back up. I'm trying to fit an awful lot in this, but one thing I did learn: I'm not a big trail camera guy. I've got a few cameras, and they're not really good ones. They more or less just are cameras that I throw up if I have somebody going through a gate and I want to know who it is, or if I see something. Case in point, I had a bird feeder that was just destroyed every night, and I couldn't figure it out, and I kept blaming it on the coons and everything else, and come to find out what was actually happening was the deer were getting down, and the bird feeder, it was a quail feeder, so it was on a stake in the ground, and the deer were getting down and sticking their head up under there to get to the seed. and when they went to move or do anything, if they had any kind of rack at all, it'd flip it off to stake, and then it was a free-for-all around there and all that. So I put a camera on that thing just to see what it was. Of course, there was some coon activity. There always is. Coons getting into about anything. I put a camera in the hallway of a barn one time because I had a bear. And it wasn't a full-grown bear. I knew it wasn't full-grown, but I could tell by the scratches on the freezer and some of the bite marks and all. And by freezer, I had a big chest freezer that I put my horse feed, the sweet feed and everything in, and then I had put 2 hasps on the end and just used regular old padlocks. You could have used a snap or anything. I don't know, a bear could have got a hold of a snap and pulled it off, because they get pretty destructive. I always kept one horse in a stall there so I could go check my cow, and I always knew that I could tell, well, number one, that freezer would be rolled down the aisleway in the barn. And the second thing is, you go in there in the morning and that horse would be bug-eyed standing in the stall. He done spent the night. I said, I'm like John Rex Gates. He's a good friend of mine. Well, he was the winningest field trial bird dog trainer in history, and we pulled up, catch a coyote trap one time. He had a rooster in one end of it and a coyote in the other, and it was a live trap, and the coyote couldn't get to the rooster and all that. And I'll never forget him getting out, and he said, I bet that rooster and that coyote done had a good conversation between them. But anyway, back to the RUT and the trail cameras. Without me studying pictures so much, this is something I learned that I should have picked up on immediately. I'm usually looking at their body stature and their size and just trying to age them, and I've never really focused on any one area of the deer unless they had an abnormal rack or tines or something like that. But the deer, this man told me this, and we were standing in the yard, and this man worked for Primos for a lot of years and everything else, and run one of his big hunting operations and everything. And he told me, I'm in a club over there by him, and he told me, he said, you won't even see the tarsal glands turn around here until about middle of January. And so I started going back and looking at the pictures of the bucks that people were getting. We get a lot of buck pictures at night over there for some reason. And sure enough, the tarsals on the deer were snow white. They were just as white as they could be. They hadn't been urinating down their legs or rubbing their hocks together or anything like that. And so that's one little tip you can think of. I mean, if you've got enough cameras and you got them out, you can actually kind of determine when the rut's getting closer by just looking at the tarsal glands on the pictures you bring home. But as I said before, it's really hard. Now in the Midwest, you'll hit a time period, and somebody like the Drew brothers and some of the people that hunt the Midwest, every year, which I hunted the Midwest for several years in a row. I was in a stand 20 days out of the month of November. But I'm there in a different capacity. A lot of times I was in there, I was running a camera. I really was not concerned, other than the fact that the amount of deer we were seeing. And you'll see a tremendous amount of deer when the rut's on, and you're liable to see them any time of the day. And then when they cut off, they just cut off like a switch. And people say it's got to do with the moon phase, and people say it's got to. I'm sure it does, but as I've slowed down quite a bit in the fact that I don't pursue them quite as hard as I used to. In other words, I don't know, I say that, and I'm 57. I got me a pair of hip boots on the other day, and I walked 3/4 of a mile in one way and hunted out them hip boots all day. Just because of where this particular club I'm in over there is, it's right on the Mississippi-Louisiana line, and there's a tremendous amount of water, and I've always had really good success when I stepped out of the water onto the first step of the stand. I just believe that water don't hold the scent by the time you've waded to wherever you're going. If you can make that first step up into the stand, you've essentially entered the area scent free, or as scent free as you could possibly be. Once again, I'm so in tune with so many different kinds of hunting that I'm checking the wind from the time I get out of the truck. I mean, because all you have to do is elk hunt a little bit, and if you elk hunt at all, when the wind shifts on an elk, and it will be the barest little old breeze, like you can just feel it on the back of your neck. And when that wind shifts, people always look at me like I had some kind of ESP or something. I could just tell you, I say, fixing to smell us. And you can actually use that to your favor every now and then. Not elk hunting, of course, but, well, yeah, kind of, because if you got kind of a quarter in a crosswind, you can shoot him before he gets to your scent stream and all that. But I believe that wading in the water and climbing into the stand, there's nothing wrong with that and all that. But it's been real different over there. And in the South, I think that you'll see that rut spread further and further and further out. Do they peak at a given time? Yes. But invariably, some are bred early and some are bred late, and that brings about that deer that's not as old to be a true 1.5 year old deer. And I believe it's that wave of does that come into heat that create all the big drawn out rutting behavior, because no one, it's not like out west. Out west they have a winter kill, and so a fawn that's not born with enough time to get enough up under it, it's just not going to make it through the snow and all that kind of stuff. But case in point, the other day I was out hunting and I was kind of just poking around. I do a lot of that, in areas where you don't have as great a deer density. you have to hunt a little bit harder to get on something